Well, it's going to be another hot day, so I'll have to water these at least once today. It's getting over 90, and these pots, sometimes they need 2 of these a day. I'm bottom watering all these pots. This is a clone of sweet basil. I've already harvested from it once. I cut this clone and this clone on June 28th from this mother plant here, and I just used rooting powder from Menards. Of course, this has had many harvests already, but this is my first experience with clones, and of course you don't need the rooting powder, but I've been very impressed by it. Anyhow, this is a collection of Lesya peppers and shishito peppers that I saved seed from last year's harvest. Retired agronomy consultant from the USDA came to our town last year, gave a talk, and had a whole bunch of starts in Dixie cups, and so I took one little start of Lesya pepper and one of shishito and grew them, and had almost 100% germination on the seeds that I saved from last year's harvest. I kept them in an envelope in the fridge and then used the paper towel method to germinate them. Most of these pots have Miracle-Gro potting soil in them. There are a couple that I have just whatever was in the bottom of my compost bin. These were attempts at sinking pots down to ground level just for aesthetics, just nesting one pot in the other, and I don't like it because I'm using rubber mulch here and it tends to get in there. I have mixed feelings about rubber mulch. Supposedly it can leach heavy metals into the soil, and so here we have a lilac bush that's out of control. I failed to trim it this spring, so we'll be chopping on that to calm it down next year, Lord willing. Here's some dill. I have enjoyed watching cicada killers. They love this for some reason. There's one flying right now. Once it gets hotter later, they'll be all over this thing. And if you're not familiar with the cicada killer, look it up. It looks like a monster yellow jacket, but it's really quite harmless unless you, I suppose, were to try to hold one with your hands. It can stab you with its little pseudo stinger, but cicada killers are remarkable. Enough on that. I've had a terrible time with blight this year in the tomatoes. The actual best luck I've had is with a variety that I've never tried before. I'm going to have to look at the tag I saved from that, maybe plant it out again next year. These early girls have done poorly this year. We've had very hot weather, and I've been out here watering so much that I'd wondered if this tacoing of the leaves is from overwatering, but everything else is doing great. I think that it's from the blight. I've used various antifungals, but for one reason or another, it got ahead of me. So I think these tomatoes are on their way out. I've had best luck with these cherries. Lots of red onions that are finishing up here. Planted them deeper this year. And by the way, I amended the soil with sand for the first time this year. It was, I hadn't added anything but cow manure, composted cow manure for years, so thought it was time to aerate the soil a little. So in addition to some perlite, I added sand, and boy did it drain. I might have picked the wrong year to do that, seeing what a drought we've had this year. Gateway cucumbers are very happy here, and my wife is inside making sweet pickles to try to keep up with the harvest. Lots of jalapeno peppers come in. A couple of green bell peppers snuck into here. They were mislabeled at the nursery, but that's okay. Hopefully we'll be making, my wife will be making sweet pickled jalapenos from those. I believe that's thyme. This is my wife's department. Yes, thyme, rosemary. Haven't used much of that this year. And these are an experiment. The local nursery at Runnings was getting rid of their starts because it was very late in the season. They were half dead, root bound, just in terrible shape. I think it was on July 3rd that I bought them 75% off just to see if they would go. And they're definitely showing signs of the stress they were under there, but I ought to get some harvest off that basil. And we have some gigantic, I can't remember the name of it, it was large or gigantic jalapenos. These are bush pole beans that have been doing very, very well. We haven't been putting them up, so the goal at this point is to eat so many green beans we get sick of them until we're ready for next season. But then here is something I would not do again. This is baby's breath. I put this in when I was trying roses years ago. And this thing, I've already cut it all the way down to the ground once. It gets so big, it actually encroaches into the raised bed here. And the local florist said, oh sure, I'll take some. So I cut it down and took half to the city burn site and a full 5-gallon bucket of baby's breath flowers to the florist, only to learn later that I inadvertently brought pests into their floral shop. So if I do it again, I'll make sure to use some insecticide, and more importantly, I will deliver it to the parking lot behind their back door rather than carrying it right into the shop through the front door. Lessons learned. I felt pretty bad about that. All right, well, these take quite a while to drink water, as you can see. This is still floating pretty high, and it may be because I use landscape fabric to cover the holes on the bottom in an attempt to keep the perlite from washing out that I have at the very bottom. And I have a good layer of perlite actually in the bottom, and also to retard the drainage coming out of the pot. But in any case, yeah, these take quite a while to drink from the bottom. I've learned the hard way. You can fill those things up on the top until there's a pool that deep on the top, and by the time it soaks in, you won't have watered but the first couple inches of this soil mix that's heavy with peat moss. All right, it is August 2nd, 2023, and that is the state of the garden, warts and all.